Welcome back, Punkheads, to a brand new review. I'm AJPunk 15, and we are going to sit back and talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Dear God, has it come to this already? Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 pretty much stars the exact same cast as the last one. We see a returning Malcolm McDowell, Scout Taylor Compton, Tyler Maine, Brad Dourif, Danielle Harris, the cast of Sons of Anarchy, and a psychiatrist played by Margot Kidder. Oh, and most notably about the new cast in Halloween 2, I'm assuming the last guy who played young Michael Myers, the Egg, maybe grew too much, which to me wasn't really a big bother. He probably could have still played the character, but anyway, they replaced him with some guy named Chase Fennick, who did an even worse job than he did. The very first time I watched Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, after seeing all the original films after I seen Rob Zombie's Halloween, I was like, holy shit, this is going exactly where Halloween 2 with John Carpenter's film left off, leading toward this big, ultimate, badass climax at the hospital. And it does so for about 15 minutes. The parts at the hospital itself, Laurie getting brought to the hospital, you know, she's getting all stitched up, you can see the bones and the gore and stuff. Rob Zombie nailed that stuff. I mean, that was absolutely fantastic. It was believable. You thought Laurie wasn't actually, you know, she's like in a really, really bad way, and these doctors are trying to save her, and then you see her kind of sedated for a little bit. And then we kind of go back to Michael's perspective, and we see him getting dragged in an ambulance. We have one of the people from Sons of Anarchy, and we have Doomhead from 31. They're, you know, cracking wise about fucking dead corpses, especially Linda's corpse, and how ripe she still is, and you can't jelly a dick up a dead girl's ass joke, which just didn't feel right for me. I mean, these guys have probably been together for a while, so why would they make that joke now? Seems kind of dumb if you ask me. Oh, but lo and behold, on the way to the hospital, when these guys are talking about fucking corpses, they run into a cow. How convenient was that? A fucking cow in the middle of the road with Michael Myers in the back of the ambulance. How convenient was that? You couldn't come up with something similar to hit loose gravel and flipped it and Michael flew out? Just off the top of my head. Oh, and if you didn't notice by now, as soon as they hit the cow and you see the ambulance drivers, one of them is dead, and you see Doomhead, and he's uttering the most annoyingly multiple accounts of the word fuck I've ever seen. And if I'm not mistaken, Rob Zombie did this as a big fuck you, a metaphoric fuck you, to all the people who said his first film had too many swearing cuss words in it. Yeah, you showed them. Oh yeah, Michael breaks out and he saws his head off with a piece of glass and he walks off into the distance with a white horse. Which brings us to the very opening part of this movie. We see an explanation for that white horse shoehorned in. Here's what a white horse means. It'll be brought up. We go to Smith's Grove Sanitarium and we see a young Michael Myers, played by Chase Fennick, very noticeably by Chase Fennick, and Sherry Moon trying to do her best acting with this kid that wasn't as good as the Egg. And he sees the white horse and he's playing with it, and they try to shoehorn an explanation in for why Rob Zombie can put his wife in another film. Flash forward again, we see Michael Myers after he cuts Buddy's head off with a piece of glass. He's walking off into the distance with his mother dressed in all white, almost like a ghost apparition type thing, and a white horse. Then moves forward to the hospital scene, and this is probably the best parts of the film. We get this awesome scene in the hospital where Michael's stalking Laurie. It's almost very, very reminiscent. Some of the exact same shots of the original Halloween 2 when Michael was stalking Laurie in the hospital. And it was intense. It was everything you wanted Rob Zombie to do with this film, but it was almost too good to be true. Towards the end of the scene, Laurie locks herself in like a toll booth where the toll booth person comes over and tries to help her, and it turns out he's a metaphor too for her teddy bear. Michael kills him, he breaks in, and she wakes up. It turns out Laurie's dealing with a lot of PTSD that would come with surviving such a dramatic event, and it turns out the reason why she's the way she is every time she looks at Annie, who also survived the events of Halloween 1, she just remembers of all the shit that happened and she thinks it's her fault, which I can understand, but you turn Laurie, a sympathetic character who you're supposed to follow and love and hope that she doesn't die, into someone that you really do hope dies because she's annoying, she's a brat, she's just this over-the-top character that did not need to be done that way. You misinterpreted Laurie altogether, and I know with this film, Rob, you kind of wanted to take it in your own direction and give Laurie more of a character development. You did that. Just, if there was a boat in the harbor and you were Evel Knievel and you were going to fly a ramp and land in that boat and it was like do or die, I don't think he made it off the dock. I think he just kind of like went off course and tipped over. That's exactly what happened with Laura's character. One positive from this is that you get Annie, who's now a more sympathetic character. In the first movie, she was kind of a bit of a brat, but likable. In this one, she's totally likable, and you feel for her character because you know what happened to her in the first film. She's all scarred and cut up. You know, she kind of keeps to herself as much as possible. Her and her dad live out in the middle of nowhere, trying to keep away from the town and stuff, and she's just trying to live out her life the best way she can after the events of that day. 1 or 2 years ago. I don't think Rob Zombie could actually make up his mind. In the theatrical release, I think it was 1 year ago, and in the director's cut, it was 2 years ago that the events of the first film took place. It's like a little timestamp comes up. And for some reason, he just couldn't make up his mind. Through the events of the first film, we find out that Sheriff Brackett leaked the information out to Dr. Loomis that Laurie is actually Michael's sister, and he's come back to kill her. And Loomis does save the day. And then you turn his character around, and now he's like a money-grubbing asshole who used this information to his benefit in a book and leaked to the world that Laurie's throat was Michael Myers' sister, and it was Angel Myers. This wouldn't be so bad, but the fact that you turn Dr. Loomis' character and someone that I really enjoyed in the first film into someone that I really, really despised in this film, and not because of the way you wrote him. It's just... it didn't work for Malcolm McDowell. For me, personally speaking, it just didn't fit his character. He was just like, I want my cup PG tips sizzling hot. That's not what Dr. Loomis is about. You're not going to change your character persona that quick and for no reason in a year. Loomis probably almost ended up dying, but he kind of expected that anyway, going up against Myers. But he wouldn't change his persona into some dick. Yeah, he was basically just this giant dick walking around on screen, flapping around, and his balls are shaking for feet. Just wasn't entertaining. One good thing about Brad Dourif is his character stayed the same, and I loved that. One of the absolute best scenes in the film, which I'll talk about in a minute, came down to him and Danielle Harris's character Annie. Throughout the film, you see kind of a psychic connection between Laurie and Myers. At one point, Michael tries to eat dog meat after he killed a dog, and we see Laurie, as he's eating it, throwing it up, and then Michael throws up, and it's just like, oh, they're kind of connected. What other film did that? Obviously, if it didn't work in the previous films, why would it work in this one? Even though Rob has been on record saying that after the first Halloween, the rest of them sucked, but yet he incorporates them into his films. Yay. Now, the new douche Laurie has also 2 new douche friends who work at a hippie-style cafe shop, and they're going to something called the Phantom Jam with a whole bunch more douchebags wrapped up into a giant party where she starts tripping balls. Laurie ends up finding out she is Angel Myers, and then she screams it to the world, literally on her front porch in the middle of nowhere, like, yeah, everyone's gonna hear that. Oh, I guess Michael Myers did, because not only did he kill a whole bunch of people in the town leading to the events of this night, he also killed Annie. And then he kills Laurie's friends, which leads to the next part where one of Laurie's friends called the cops. The cops show up. They're like, Sheriff Brackett, you gotta get home. And it's one of the most emotional, heartbreaking scenes in all of the Halloween films. We see Sheriff Brackett walk home. He finds the corpse of Annie on the floor. He just completely breaks down. And it's a very great scene. It's probably one of the best scenes in Rob Zombie's Halloween films. I kind of rival it to the Sherry Moon in the first one, but for me, I just didn't find that emotionally impactful in the first one when she committed suicide, whereas when we see Brad Dourif's character, he sees his daughter on the ground, and we know that we love Danielle Harris in that character, and she made it her own. After being cast in 2 other Halloween films, she made this one really, really work, and I was quite surprised that the performance that Brad Dourif gave off was absolutely amazing, and it was intercut with little slideshow kind of things of like Danielle when she was a little girl playing with a dog and stuff. It was emotionally, pulled at the heartstrings a little bit, and it worked for this film. Then Myers finally catches up with Laurie. He kind of knocks her out, and he drags her out to a shed in the middle of nowhere. And then some kind of like old school Western film kind of style breaks out where all the cops surround the house and Myers is inside. Very similar to The Devil's Rejects opening. Laurie's in there and she's freaking out. She's kind of like thinking that young Michael Myers is holding her down while old Michael Myers is stood up and his mom is right next to him. Basically, I think what they were going for is Michael was passing the torch down to Laurie to become the next killer, because Michael was done being it and he wanted to return home to mommy. Another big negative of this film is that they didn't utilize the original score that John Carpenter used and Tyler Bates remade for the first film. I think they used it once in the theatrical cut at the very end of the film. Why? Why use this beautiful score that you remade for the first film thanks to Tyler Bates and not use it in this film? Very little use it in this film. I just don't understand it, man. I don't understand this. The film ends off one of two ways if you're watching a theatrical or director's cut. Myers throws Loomis outside the wall, and then he stabs him, and then Loomis falls to the ground. Myers gets shot by the police. Laurie walks out. She looks like she's going to stab Loomis. She gets shot, and then she's dragged to what seems like an insane asylum, and that's where she's to. But if you watch the theatrical cut, we know that Myers brutally murders Dr. Loomis. He then gets shot from the police through a window and falls on some kind of steel grate and gets impaled multiple times, and then Laurie takes up the mask and the knife, tells her brother that she loves him, stabs him a bunch of times, walks out with the mask on, gets shot a bunch of times, and then dies. Or an insane asylum. You can't really choose because one of them has a white horse walking towards her like Myers had. I absolutely despise this film. The first couple times I watched it, I actually did think it was okay. I can remember like defending this film a few years ago when I first seen it and saying, you know what, it's not that bad like you're saying. And I was one of the people to watch the commentary, so I understood what he was going for with the white horse. But you know what? Most people don't watch commentaries. And that really struck a nerve with me because if you can't display what you wanted to do in a film, then explaining it in a commentary doesn't mean that it's a good film. It just means you're a bad director. I'm a Rob Zombie fanboy. I don't multiple takes of his CDs. I own all his films, even though half of them are bad. One of my favorite films that he's made is Lords of Salem, and everyone hates it. That being said, after watching this film a bunch of times now and realizing it's not a good film, it's not a good entry into the Halloween series, I'm going to score this film a 4 out of 10. And the only reason why I gave it 4 out of 10 is because Brad Dourif's performance as Sheriff Brackett was awesome, Danielle Harris nailed it as Annie, and we got that amazing hospital scene for the first 15 minutes that if Rob would have stuck with, honestly, I thought it would have been a way better film if he just paced it out a bit more for maybe an hour and a half and not this 2-hour crap window that for some reason he had to do and stretch the film out. It just didn't work. I will say the best part about Myers in this film for myself is the Rabbit in Red scene. He goes into the Rabbit in Red, which is a little nod to the matchbook that we see in the first film, and he goes in and it's a strip club where his mother worked, and he's just like stepping on people's heads, breaking her arms, killing strippers. It was a fun scene from Michael Myers, but then they added his mother again on the stage and I just didn't like it. Oh, and also he doesn't wear his mask for 90% of the film. So there's that. Overall, it's not a fun film, it's not a great film, it's not a good Halloween film. But if you're in the mood to watch all the Halloween films, you're probably going to want to sit back and watch this. Otherwise, I don't recommend it. Also, stay tuned for the coming weeks. I am going to do a Friday night film review every Friday night leading up to Halloween. And I also will be continuing my Halloween series of reviews with every one of them culminating on Halloween night with Halloween 1 and 2 combined reviews. So stay tuned for that. And as always, take care and stay frosty. Happy October.